We begin this half hour with trouble on the track for what is arguably the oldest sport in America. Horse racing has a history full of beloved names such as Secretariat, Seabiscuit, and Man of War. But growing concern over the number of horses killed on racetracks, an average of 10 a week, is forcing the racing industry to reassess how it conducts its business, as some call for more regulation and others an outright ban. There's perhaps no more exciting moment in all of sport than when these elite athletes burst from the gate and give every ounce of strength, training, and genetics in the quest to be the first to cross the finish line.
By the supremely gifted athlete.
I'm very passionate about not only the sport, but horses, period.
Kobe's back, wins it for Gary Stevens.
No one knows the thrill and the risks of this beautiful sport more than Hall of Fame jockey Gary Stevens. He won 5,000 races, including the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes, 3 times each. He even had a role in the movie Seabiscuit.
There it is. Have a nice ride, Johnny.
I've been in this sport all of my life, and I've seen it all of my life.
A vintage performance!
But Stevens is now worried the sport he loves is in existential danger. After the most recent death of a horse at Santa Anita during the Breeders' Cup Classic, despite an unprecedented number of reforms implemented at that track the past few months, California Senator Dianne Feinstein issued an ominous warning. If the horse racing industry is unwilling to treat these magnificent creatures humanely, it has no business operating in the United States.
I'm scared for racing here in California. I really am. The misconception is that we're not caring for these horses and that we as a group don't care. We care.
The reality is there have always been fatalities in horse racing. When these half-ton athletes are racing at full speed, about 40 miles an hour, only 1 foot at a time hits the ground. That's an enormous amount of violent pressure on relatively narrow leg bones. When a broken bone occurs, thoroughbreds are simply physiologically incapable of staying alive while the bone heals. Horse race deaths here are 2 to 3 times higher than in Europe, where there are tighter controls on race day medications and where training and the tracks themselves are different.
Well, I'm the 4th generation in the business. My great-grandfather got in it right after the Civil War, and then my grandfather and my father.
The Hancock family is American racing royalty. Arthur Hancock's Stone Farm Stables in Kentucky has fielded 14 international champions.
Nobody loves horses more than we do. These things, are tragedies when they happen, and they break your heart.
He says racing's biggest problem is the lack of a strong central authority. They have no commissioner, resulting in a patchwork of conflicting regulations over drugs, veterinary records, even use of the whip.
We have, 38 different racing jurisdictions. I call all these groups fiefdoms, and they can't get together.
Hancock also believes American horses are entirely over-medicated, and many drugs mask underlying issues, putting perhaps slightly injured horses on the path to a fatal injury. In most states, both Lasix, an anti-bleeding drug, and the anti-inflammatory phenylbutazone, known as Bute, are allowed on race day. A European study released this month statistically connected Bute to on-track breakdowns.
I contend that if a horse needs drugs to run, he doesn't need to be running. He needs to run on his natural ability, not some chemically induced ability.
A bill now before Congress would eliminate all race day meds and give enforcement authority to the doping agency that oversees the Olympics. It would also establish an independent central authority charged with improving horse and rider safety. Gary Stevens says it's about time.
So you would support a national authority that oversaw all of horse racing in the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, are you optimistic now that change will happen?
Oh, it's got to happen or they're done here, period. And if they're done here, it's going to be a tidal wave across the United States.
And just this month, a group of owners, tracks, and organizations that represent 85% of American horse racing announced their own initiative to establish a thoroughbred safety coalition. But Arthur Hancock is skeptical that the industry is actually capable of policing itself.
For it to come to the head that it has, and these guys to come out the way that they have.
Yeah, well,
really,
the industry, it's suffering. Attendance is down. They're having to encourage trainers to get horses on the track more and more often so they have
people in the seats.
Right.
So there are a lot of conflicting pressures going on.
Really good story, just in that there have been so many reports this year, Don.
Yeah.
You bring
Really
it
important.
all together.
Yeah.